Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, or good day wherever you are in the world, and welcome to the next episode of No Dice, No Glory. Sponsored by our jobs that actually pay us money, we're coming to you not at all live from an abandoned arms factory deep under a mountain in West Virginia. We are proud to proffer to you the finest in wargaming coverage. Without any further ado, let's get this show on the road.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome. Thank you, Sean, for that lovely introduction. And Tales of the Sail is back as August starts to exit the stage and I get ready for school. We are back to recording and hopefully we'll have a more regular schedule between now and the end of the year. We have a couple of people here with us, and so introductions will take a little longer than they normally would because everybody's going to get a chance to talk about what they've been up to. So you are joined by regular Glenn, the gentleman farmer Van Meter.
Hello, everybody.
Mr. Garrett Swader.
Hello.
And special guest star, a lovely man who regrettably will probably be moving out of Florida relatively soon, Niguel Vega.
How's it going, everyone?
We're going to go around the horn, talk about what we've been up to. Niguel's going to give us the down low on his Historicon, but Niguel's been a busy dude because he's retired. He's the youngest old man I've ever met in my life. You're officially retired, right?
Retired?
I've been retired officially as of June 30th. And while I appreciate being the youngest retired man, you know, I am not the youngest retired man that I know, because I know people who retired at 43 and 42 and 44. They are the youngest retired people I know.
You guys have a lot to talk about. They've been more heavily involved than we have with some really cool events off to the west. Ever since Historicon, I have been building buildings. I've mostly been working on projects from things from the basement, which I learned is basically based in Connecticut. So he's like down the street from me, which is kind of cool. So I'm going to have a Mediterranean village to rival Niguel's. But Niguel's is beautifully painted. You got yours from Crescent Root, correct?
I did. I outsourced it to Crescent Root, which is not the cheapest alternative to doing it yourself for sure. But they do excellent work. And they're a little exclusive. They like shut down their website like every 3 weeks. And it's like, no, we hit order capacity. We have to fill these orders before we take any more. So respect to them.
Yeah, I admire that.
Pull people up. But you have to kind of get them in a certain window. Otherwise, you're waiting for the next opening.
So I will say that two of the buildings that I assembled were Charlie Foxtrot models, which seem slightly bigger in scale and size and scope. They also didn't really come with instructions. Not that they're super complicated models, but the instructions are like a single page, and then they just kind of expect you to figure it out. The things from the basement instructions are very easy to follow, very step-by-step like Legos, and I found I had more fun putting them together. And once you get the feel for how their laser cut wood fits, it tends to fly. So I have everything assembled. I even ordered more of them because I'm a glutton for punishment. I think I'm going to have a village of like 7 or 8 houses, town hall, stable, and things like that. I'm going to have quite the little game I can get going. But I have a deadline for myself, which is always good for us gamers, because I'm having a couple of local guys over, and we're going to be playing a King of the Hill and a big sea game, which Niguel's going to be a part of. So he's coming over to my house a week from when we're recording this. Basically, Labor Day weekend, my last gasp of freedom before I have to report back for what's likely to be a very, very difficult school year. But they kind of all are at this point. Other than modeling stuff, I have been...
Things in the basement, did they officially take over the Ports of Plunder line?
No, from what he told me, because I asked him at the con, and he basically said that a number of the prints that Foreground did were his designs that he was like letting them use or licensing to them. And when Foreground went under, he took back control of the designs that he'd allowed them to use. So there's a number of like cuts and models, I'm not sure which ones, that Foreground used to have that Things from the Basement now has. But I'd have to take a closer look at his catalog, which is extensive, to get a feel for which ones would have been duplicates.
Because I could have sworn
I know that it was talk of that.
I could have sworn that the Ports of Plunder stuff had his logo on the back, but I could be very wrong.
It might. Like, he might have done... The one piece that I know he does and still has access to is, like, the crane. There's, like, that big wooden crane that you can assemble for the docks, like loading ships and things like that. And that's, I believe, his design.
Okay. Because I have that one for sure.
Because there's that one. And there's also, like, the little ship skeleton. Well, that's something they just have. But I didn't see any copies of, like, the stone piers themselves, which I know is, like, one of the main components of it. But it's very possible that a number of the buildings that I've assembled are part of the kit that he just took back for himself. Like the single-story building and the farm, I think, were things that were available on Foreground site.
Well, here's
kind of
hoping.
like puzzling through it. When not assembling models or putting together terrain, painfully slowly, I have been building a patio. So I've been moving tons of stone around. I finished that project last week. And I've been building paths all over the property so I can get to and fro and stuff like that. Replanted the grass, regraded the side yard, power washed half the house. So I've been using the summer to basically get done a long checklist of things that I have not managed to get to in the 7 years that I've owned my house. But other than that, I'm looking forward to our big Labor Day game, Niguel, Niguel has made me a list. And for those of you who listen to this podcast, Niguel is way better at making lists than me. I got to give that to him. And my lists tend to run the gamut from really generic to atrociously terrible. And so I'm excited to see, how the thing he designed for me plays. And it seems like it's going to play pretty cool. So I'm looking forward to it. I will turn the floor over to Mr. Garrett Swader, who I will ask to kind of give us all an intro, let us know where you're recording from, where you play, and tell us what you've been up to.
Well, I am in sunny Georgia right now. You were talking about being outside a lot. It is blistering hot here, so I've been trying to avoid the outside. Yeah, I'm usually playing games at home. I am currently trying to get a game store on board with Blood and Plunder and possibly Oak and Iron. So I'm working with some of the guys there near where I am to get that going. But no, mostly my gaming consists of playing games here with my wife at home.
Now you came up for the destination tournament that we put on in Maryland, correct?
No, I did not. I did not come up for the destination tournament. I came up and stayed with Glenn for Fall In last year.
Oh, right. Okay. And have you gotten a chance to play any games with like the North Carolina contingent? Because like I know you're not.
I have not yet. We there was a guy on the Discord that I've been talking to a little bit that he was wanting to put on a Southeast region tournament at some point.
That might be Andrew Vogel you're thinking of.
Maybe. I don't remember his name.
He owns Bazooka Games. He has a game store and he's getting it going. And he loves it. He came and he played a ton of games. I think he placed second in the Historicon land tournaments. And he's trying to get something going, but he's in North Carolina, so he's a bit of a hike.
Actually, weird story. His store is in North Carolina. He actually lives in my town.
Oh.
Like,
he's got to drive all the way through.
He's like a 10-minute drive up the road from me.
I did not know that. I thought he lived in North Carolina.
Yeah, I live in a podunk town in the middle of nowhere, Maryland, and there are 3 Blood and Plunder players, including myself, that I know of in town.
Yeah, when I came to visit you, I thought you were going to kill me. I was like, I'm never going to be seen again, and nobody will know where I went.
I mean, I've got the backhoe back, so, always next time.
As long as your sheep keep knocking on the fence, though, I have a way to escape. So I feel good about that. So, Garrett, tell us what projects you've been up to, because you've been up to a lot.
So, project-wise, I've been working on a second Piragua. Trying to do some Latine sales on that. I've got I'm sitting in my hobby space right now, just like looking around the room and seeing what all I'm working on. There's a brigantine over there that I need to finish. There's a galleon in front of me that's looming, but I got one and it's not got really anything done on it right now. But yeah, that is, and I've got some models right now that I'm putting together for Blood and Plunder, but they're pretty not put together right now. They're in pieces in front of me. So.
And Glenn, tell us what you have been up to since I saw you for a single day before you left at like 1 a.m. to get on a plane to Florida.
Yeah, so I was at Historicon. My family went down to visit my parents for the summer because they're in Florida. They have a pool, all that stuff. So I was taking care of the farm all on my lonesome, but that also meant that when I came home in the evenings, I didn't have anyone to be here for. So I got to like go play Magic with friends or try and meet up for games, that kind of stuff. That was a lot of fun. I went to Historicon, ran the tournaments, was there till like 1, left, drove home, tried to do a bunch of farm stuff at like 3 a.m. in the dark, got back in my car like an hour later, drove to my in-laws, and then flew to Florida on like 30 minutes of sleep. And then
That's still insane to
when
me.
Good Lord.
it is insane.
I thought
have
us
very little
driving back
energy.
at like 2 a.m. at Fall In was crazy, but
Yeah, no, it was lots of caffeine. So, but when I got back from Florida, I got to start my new job. So I finally have a permanent position and much better hours. So I actually got to go to my gaming club yesterday for the first time as a part of my regular job. Well, not part of the job, but like part of my normal work hours. Like I can now go to the gaming club. Yeah, so things are settling in. I'm finally getting back to a routine now that I'm not a contractor and doing crazy stuff. So as far as hobbying, I've been working on trying to get some Blood and Plunder stuff built, really trying to get my gaming area cleaned out and set up so that I can start running games in my basement now that I'm going to have some actual time to do it.
I've heard that before.
Yeah, I know, but that's we'll see if it happens as usual. But I would like to actually host games now that I have time.
Well, your cat will appreciate having some fewer spaces to hide.
Yeah,
He really loves it down there.
yeah. She actually she got very used to running around the entire house on her own with no one here because the dog wasn't here to bother her, the kids weren't here to bother her, so she had like run of the whole house, and then everybody came back and she's back to hiding.
So to people that don't know, Glenn, I'll try to paint you a visual picture of what this basement looks like.
Oh God!
It's actually it's a relatively large space, and it's really perfectly suited for it because it's got a nice large table in the middle. But the image I would ask you to conjure would be the final scene in Raiders of the Lost Ark, where they're storing the Ark of the Covenant within boxes upon boxes upon boxes. I've never seen so many models from so many different systems. It's
I
a
always
room.
thought of it more like
It's a room of
Treasure
wonders.
Cave Aladdin, yeah.
Yes, that's better. That's better. It's the treasure cave from Aladdin. That's what
And
it
if
is.
you touch anything, it will fall over.
It's dead on.
Yeah, it's quite an episode of Hoarders, but it's I need to get it cleaned up.
Which brings us to our guest, who's one of the favorite opponents I've ever played against. I don't know if I've ever won a game against you, and I feel bad about that. And Niguel is a list maestro. He loves playing with the game, learning how it works, figuring out how things tick. You got some good terrain. You got some beautifully painted models, which I know you can't take credit for because you had Rufus paint most of them for you, but you still play them pretty well. So, Niguel, tell the people who you are and tell them what kind of games you play.
I play a little bit of everything, I guess, to a certain degree. I've been really focused on Blood and Plunder of late, and Blood and Valor to a lesser extent. I've been playing. I played Sid Meier's Pirates 1, Sid Meier's Pirates 2. I've always had a love for that age and that location of conflict. So it's something I've always enjoyed. So Blood and Plunder has been kind of like if you had your choice of like, man, I wish somebody would make this game. Mike Tunez delivered that in his first Kickstarter for this game. So I'm very focused on this game. Most of my miniature gaming has always been, I mean, I can paint. I used to be actually a pretty decent painter, but it was very slow, very particular. One model will take me like 2 days. And Rufus and Kai, both of them are excellent painters. They'll knock out a unit or half a unit in like a day. And I can't match that speed to that quality of paint job that they do. So you reach a point where it's like, what's your time worth to you? If you have the time to do it, and there is more satisfaction to doing it yourself, for sure, do it yourself. For me, it was like, I want to play this game, and if I paint this stuff, I'm not going to paint it. I'm not going to play it for 3 years. So that was just my way about it, you know.
Yeah, I find that I get a lot of satisfaction from painting them. I'm very particular about it. I usually will not play with unpainted models on the table. It's very rare. But if I had like as short a space of time, I don't begrudge you for getting them painted. Don't mistake me. I think it's a smart use of your time if you'd rather play at gaming. I love the craft part of it. And I paint faster than you, a lot faster, but I also paint a lot worse. So I guess it's a trade-off that I'm willing to make.
I'll be honest. I have systems where I have farmed out the painting to someone else and paid for models to get painted. Because there's just not enough time.
Yeah, I mean, my profession for last 20 years was such that, uh, I had rotating days off. So I had weekends once every 3 months. And so it's a matter of, okay, am I going to paint this during the week when I'm off and other people are, a lot of times you have to do stuff during the week when you're off. So it was just not a very conducive schedule towards having a regular painting kind of like regimen. Or even having a good social circle. Because, I mean, I would have friends come in from out of town and be like, hey, man, can we hang out this weekend? And I'd be like, well, I don't have weekends off for the next 3 months. So no. So there was a lot of stuff that goes into having a rotating schedule that can throw off your kind of regimen of doing stuff. So it just became to a point where in the last few years, things were so crazy. I made so much overtime. It was just like, well, I could just pay to have this done, and it'll be done better than if I did it and much more quickly.
Makes sense to me. But speaking of all that painting you're having done for you, what are the current projects that you're working on gaming wise?
So I'll never really fully give up on Blood and Plunder, and I'll never really fully give up on Natives as much as sometimes I feel like they let me down. Of late, I've been messing with, I kind of went through a phase where I was like, I was never one to have large trash horde armies in any game I played. So natives by default are a little elite, a little elite in some ways, not so elite in others. In particular, with Resolve, which they tend to fall short of their European and even colonial counterparts. So I went super elite once, and then that didn't work out in my 0-9 Historicon tournament, where I won no games across 3 different tournaments. So I toned it down, and in the following year did much better. But I've kind of fallen back into the idea of, all right, you can't have an entire veteran army at a tournament. That's not an efficient use of your points. But there is something to having one veteran unit if that veteran unit, being at that level of training is something that's going to achieve what you want from that unit. So I've fallen in love with the idea of veteran melee units, especially ones that have quick baked in. With an infantry unit that's veteran with quick, you have a threat range of 16 inches. With cavalry, you actually have a threat range of 20 inches. If everybody here who's listening is a very experienced Blood and Plunder player, the average board, you're going to be able to pretty much cover 2/3 of the board with that kind of range. Now, cavalry is funny because it's not the best at going through rough terrain. It doesn't have scouts, and they get an additional penalty for going through rough terrain. So an intervening terrain can really limit cavalry, but the infantry, especially scout infantry, doesn't have that problem. So,
I have to say, like, I always wanted to play a list with the horses because they look cool, and I've seen them on the tabletop a bunch of times, and they seem like they're a blast. But the obstacle to me putting them on the table has always been that I have the models, I just haven't assembled them, and I haven't painted them. Because I don't know why, but painting horses is like intimidating, even though it shouldn't be, because it seems pretty straightforward.
It's easy enough with contrast paints. I mean,
Yeah,
you
it's
know,
not, it can't be that
she's a
bad,
horse
right?
person. Corinne's a horse person, and she was okay with the horses I painted up with contrast paint.
Oh, yeah, there you go. Well, I also let your daughter paint a bunch of my trade goods like purple because she just wanted to use the purple. I didn't have a problem with that. Well, Niguel, I'm gonna bug you for tactical advice on this podcast at some other time, but I did want to explicitly have you talk about Historicon from your perspective, because you attended the con, you weren't running any events, you got to just go as a player. You participated in a lot of stuff at Historicon, so I was hoping you might be able to kind of walk us through your convention.
So I've attended a number of conventions over the years. I'm probably a 20+ year attendee of Gen Con. If you haven't done Gen Con is, for all my love and not so much love of Gen Con, it is the gold standard of conventions in the United States, I believe. Is it the best convention for wargaming? No, I would lean towards Adepticon for that. And Adepticon is another gold standard convention as far as I'm concerned. It is, for me, probably the second best convention for, compared after Gen Con. For miniature gaming, probably the best. That being said, Historicon, content-wise, does really well. Surprisingly, for an area in the Northeast that has a lot of population, especially in New York area, you'd be surprised at how limited the gaming really is. There's pockets of it here. There's clubs here. There's a great club out of Brooklyn, Metropolitan Wargamers, that gets a lot of membership and activity. And you have some really great people out of there who attend Historicon. David Frank runs the great Japanese table that's about 12 feet long.
That table always looks so good. It looks so good.
Yeah, it accommodates like 12 4v4 or 12 players. I think it's like 3 or 4, maybe more, maybe 20 players. It does like a lot of like 2-on-2 mini boards within that long stretch of table. So you have a lot of pockets of gaming, but a lot of times out a little further from like the more populated areas like New York and stuff like that, you're going to get more organized gaming. It just is what it is. Pennsylvania's huge. So in terms of content, Historicon is very good. Having done a number of conventions, my critique of Historicon is it, for a convention that has the potential to do great things. It has the it has the attendees, it has the enthusiasm, it has the content in terms of not only the number of games but the breadth of games that are run there. You would think that that convention could do a lot more, that it would be constantly expanding, that it has the potential to grow. But I feel like there are things about it that hold it back. And the things that hold it back are the same things that held back Gen Con at points during its, over the years, and other conventions. I mean, Origins was a huge convention, and I think it suffered from some of the same things. And that's, you know, the HMGS Northeast website, not to say that the HMS South website is any better, it may be a little, is very antiquated. And, the board there have been board members for a very long time. When you have people who have been in that position for a long time, I don't know these people, so maybe I'm speaking out of turn, and that's fine. But it doesn't seem like there's a lot of innovation or a lot of modernizing of the way that convention is signed up to or the way it's run.
I will interject and say, I will say that like I had trouble with the website, same as you. A problem that I ran into was that the games were booked up. Like they were booked up, but in a lot of cases, people simply grabbed the tickets to games they thought they would do because they knew they'd be gone. and then they didn't show. So there's a ton of no-shows. So more tickets were given out than ever, but fewer people showed up to the actual games. I will say that a number of volunteers were a huge help. There are people there that were able to sort through problems I had. I had a tech problem with my badge because the system glitched out. We weren't sure where the tables and organization stuff was, but I had one of the co-convention runners show me right where it was. So like in terms of like on the ground, it's working great. But yeah, the website was a headache. I wish they would update it.
They have historically had a lot of problems getting PayPal to talk through their website, where it was a payment option, and several conventions in a row I paid, and like it doesn't reflect that later, and like you show up, your ticket doesn't exist because they didn't get the payment even though it charged your card. It's a lot of website problems, because it's antiquated. It's not meant to work with things built in this century.
Do they have a standard fee for a game at Historicon, or what's the?
No, everything's admission on the ticket.
Yeah, you just pay your entry fee and you just register in.
Okay, and so they don't charge you per ticket?
No, it's not like Gen Con or
No.
Okay. And see, I think that's why Gen Con does that, is where to prevent people from just being like, oh yeah, I might do that. Oh yeah, sure, I might do that. Yeah, sure, I might do that. And then, you've taken up time slots like crazy, where Gen Con, it's like, okay, yeah, but you're gonna have to pay for all these, so you really have to know what you're going to do. Like, it's annoying to have to pay for them, but I also understand why they're doing it. Maybe that's something that Historicon needs to do. Maybe like charge a couple bucks for tickets,
Yeah.
I mean, it's not always an answer. To be fair, Gen Con does charge you for tickets, but you can go to the help desk and cash in that ticket an hour before the event. And that doesn't really help the situation that we're trying to address here of people no showing events while taking up ticket slots. Unless you're watching the site, you're not going to see that ticket pop back up as available. So I don't want to I don't want to hit them too hard on that stuff charging. I'm pretty sure that if they start charging per event, there'll be an uproar, because that's just the way that community is for HMGS.
Yeah, I mean that's change in general, but yeah, I get.
Their event runners will usually either find a spot at the table for anybody who shows up, whether they have a ticket or not. So I've never had a problem with it, because I've shown up to several games where I've never gotten a ticket at Historicon for anything, or Fall In or Cold Wars. I've showed up, and if there's a spot, the GM will give it away. If somebody walks up with a ticket and you're in their spot, they might bump you, but often enough the GM puts people in.
I also think the tickets are only valid if you show up 15 minutes before. There's some rule. There's like a courtesy thing where like once the game is started, if people aren't there, like your ticket's void effectively. Like if you weren't on time, then somebody who was has the right to kind of step in and just have the game start on time properly, I guess. I found myself wishing I had gone to more of the crafting and painting things, but they were booked up, and I just didn't wind up going to check what Glenn did and just see if there's spots. Because they probably would have accommodated me. They normally do. Other
don't go to seminars, okay? Don't be weird.
Talking about the how to paint a wall. Like they have some really cool techniques and stuff. There's a lot of people that are way better at painting than me, and if I can learn from some of them, then that's fun for me. I like doing that.
I feel like how to paint a wall is worse than the War College.
No, I like the wall. The wall guy was really good. It was like he taught like wet palette techniques, so I was able to kind of like mix a bunch of browns and stuff together to create a really realistic looking piece of terrain, which it was just cool. I liked it.
Tom, you don't need to worry about painting a wall. You need to be worrying about making a list before I get to your house, where like all the terrain is out, and you're like, yeah, I'm just finishing up my list, and after I told you to work on it, and then the first thing you put out is a unit attached to a field gun, and I'm like, well, I know how this is going to go.
Yeah, it's going to go beautifully, because that field gun's going to kill you. Field guns are
not true. It's
the
not
new
true.
black. Field guns are great.
It does have the
last time. I just walked. I literally was within charge distance of the field gun, and I was like, it's not even worth it.
I remember I remember what happened. I was
It
there.
does have the potential to kill 3 or 4 guys. It's
Yeah.
not good, but
It's
it
not good.
can kill you.
It can. It'll take your head clean off.
Yep.
What else can I ask you, Niguel? Any other Historicon thoughts? Tournament reflections? Were you happy with the list you brought?
All the lists I brought ended up being refined a little bit, but I wasn't completely disappointed. I got to play against some really good opponents. It was where I met Eric, and Eric did really well, and he was fun to play against. So I don't, I can't say that I went 2-1 in both of the tournaments I actually fully played through. There's a third tournament that I had to bow out of because of the parking situation over there, which is again another logistical thing that maybe isn't entirely. It's not entirely Historicon or HMGS's fault. But here's the thing: if you're running a gaming convention, it's not like an RPG convention or board game convention where the materials are all going to be there or the materials are very light. So people can just show up with their dice and their character sheet and do what they're going to do. If people have to bring stuff, people have to bring their models, and models are to varying degrees of delicacy. You can't just walk 5 blocks from the off-site parking to kind of, bring your stuff. It's not easy for people, right? Then an additional effort should be made to secure some sort of parking on site or nearby. I don't know if that's being done or not. Again, I'm not involved in the planning process with them, so I don't know what the back end of this is. But it's a big deal. It's a bigger deal than they seem to make it out to be. And they're pretty good about validating parking. But I went to that place at like 9:30 on Saturday, and the lot was full. And it was never not full for the entire day. And there's no street parking over there. I mean, the street parking, well, there is street parking. Well, here's the problem. The street parking over there is I think, every 2 hours, which is fine. Hey, I want to commit to an event. I didn't happen to get the hotel on site, which tends to dry up very quickly, but that's a separate issue.
But I can't think of a mini game that runs only 2 hours. So the parking situation is untenable. If you were lucky enough to get in to the venue, like if you're staying there, then like it was great because you already have your stuff loaded in. You already got a parking spot. You don't need to fight people for it. But no, like being located in the middle of downtown Lancaster is nice in some respects. But for the majority of people that are hauling their stuff in, it is not ideal. The host was better, frankly, for load in, load out.
If you don't get in on that room block, which is severely limited in numbers,
It's gone in like 3 days. It's gone.
It's not even 3 days.
It's 3 minutes.
I'm not sure how many rooms they put on that block, but it's not enough. I know that.
And that, again, I've heard that that's not their fault, that there are limits to what they can reserve in the block. So I'm not going to throw shade on them. But these are the reality of the situation. There's no convenient parking outside of the hotel lot, which fills up. I mean, Saturday's a lock. Everybody's there all day, either from the night before or from that super early in the morning, and it's a lock. So you can't park there. And this is what irritated me. I was in a tournament, and I would have paid. It was a friend's tournament. I wanted to participate. I wanted to have a lot of people at their event. So I would have paid, it was maybe like $5 or $6 every 2 hours. They wouldn't even let me renew for the same parking spot. I had to actually leave the event, move my car to a different parking spot, and then re-up. And I was like, well, I'm not going to do that. And so I just ended up going to the booth and helping Mike out with, because he was kind of by himself there, because one of the other 2 people working the booth were playing in the tournament that I was a part of. So it worked out in the end, but I felt like more could have been done. Can it be done logistically? I don't know. And I mean, from what I've heard of the previous venue, I don't want to say that they should have gone back to that venue or that venue was somehow better. I've heard nothing but negative reviews about the previous venue, so I don't want to give them too hard a time.
It's so bad, it's hilarious.
Hold on.
Remember it only had hot water. We're talking about Lancaster Host. It's improved, though, because they sold it to another developer. They were doing tons of renovations, so if they went back, maybe it wouldn't be the worst thing in the world. But I'm sure that the venue, when it upgraded, is going to jack up the prices for the HMGS people. You guaranteed,
the previous
right?
venue, I was thinking actually the convention center down in Fredericksburg.
Oh, which I liked. There's tons of parking, and there were hotels in the area. There's one across the street, but no, I liked Fredericksburg. I thought it was a good It was good. And also,
It was big.
the battlefield's cool. The mall, there's tons of places to go that are cheap to eat. Yeah, I thought it was good. I liked it.
Anyway, let's keep it moving to the next thing.
Well, let's talk about future. So we're on conventions. Talk about future conventions. So
Hold on, I did want to announce the winners we had at Historicon. I know we mentioned one briefly.
Yeah, go down the line.
In the LAN tournament where I was playing Ringer, so I did get to play Niguel first. He stomped my list, but I had just built a very generic list just to throw something on the table so that nobody could win without having done something. Let's see. We had Damian Nagel take first. Andrew Vogel was in second. Joe Richards was third. Fernando Arteaga took best painted, and Curtis Fraley took favorite opponent. Again, that was land 150. And in the C tournament 200, Eric Goebel took first. Fernando Arteaga took second. I believe RT Kurtzwell took third. Eric Mylan got favorite opponent, and I think I'm not certain on this, so I could be wrong. And if you were the best painted and it wasn't, I'm wrong. Like, let me know and I'll fix it. But Scott Roach, I think, took best painted. I unfortunately didn't have that one written down. But anyways, yeah, that was the Historicon results for anybody interested in how the tournaments went.
We had some nice diversity of lists. There were definitely things that I would have done differently in terms of my preparation. I would have printed out a lot of the stuff, which I did print out a ton of stuff, and then I left half of it at home when I came down, and I could not remedy that problem because printing things is difficult. Most stuff is digital, and I didn't have the equipment necessary. There have been suggestions like, East Coast pairings or West Coast pairings or whatever. There's different apps that run, but I'm more of a fan of I know this makes me a Luddite, but I just like paper. I like, I think I led to some confusion in the LAN tournament because the paper that I generated, I was trying to figure out strike points for and against for each of the players. And I think some people mixed them up because I phrased it badly. So it led to some wonky stuff. But I think that we sorted it out in the end and figured out how to get prizes to as many people as we could. And I will point out, and I'm sure that Glenn will back me up on this, the Firelock guys really came through big time. They gave us a ton of prize support for both these tournaments. Almost everybody walked away with something.
Everybody got another free poster just for coming, but almost everybody walked away with a prize. Prizes included for each tournament. Mike gave us a starter set to give away.
Full starter, the big box, yeah.
Yeah, the big one. As well as several plastic boxes, including another sloop, several boxes of like soldiers, natives, militia. I think he also put up at some point a brigantine and a frigate. I mean, there was a lot of prizes to pick from. And then there were also some of the box of plunders from the Kickstarter. So some people got to walk away with additional Blackbeards and things like that. How did Gen Con go, guys?
I had a blast. But I also didn't go just for Blood and Plunder. Me and my wife are huge board gamers, so we got to nerd around and do all that stuff. We play a board game called Agricola. I don't know if any of you guys have heard of it.
I'm a big fan of Agricola. Did you play
Agricola.
with the expansion? Do you have to heat your home?
No, I've never actually played with that. That sounds.
Yeah, you need to cut eaten wood. You can also eat horses, which is, I don't know. They're meeples,
Okay.
But it's still disturbing.
But my point is we played in a tournament for Agricola, and it was really, really refreshing to sit down and play a game of Agricola in like an hour and 15 minutes because
With
everybody
people that
knew
actually know what they're doing. Yep.
Yes.
Amen.
And I won that game, so I was super proud of myself.
Nice.
Why would anybody play a board game and know what they're doing?
Because it's fun.
Well, as a guy who subjects himself to new games all the time, I can tell you that I actually played from start to finish a game of Twilight Imperium, and
Nice.
it was glorious. It was amazing. There were 6 players. There was all sorts of intrigue and backstabbing and nonsense, and I came in second. I did pretty darn good. I was really happy about it.
We'll get to the intrigue and backstabbing when we get to the Summer of Plunder section in a minute.
Oh, right. Yes, absolutely. So you did a lot of board gaming. You did the tournament, Agricola. What else did you get up to at Gen Con?
And Niguel can talk more about this, but we played a treasure ship game that was fun with, I think there were, 5 pirates and 2 Spanish players that were over with me, so 3 total. I can't remember exactly how many were around the table, but I got to break out my 6th rate again. It's not been out since Adepticon, and it probably will not get out until next year's Adepticon because it's hard to come up with a reason to put that big of a ship on the table. But it's nice when you do. But yeah, and that was Niguel's baby, so I'm gonna let him talk more about that.
So Niguel, tell us about the big game.
So before I go into this, I want to thank Garrett because so preface this. I pitched this game to Mike months before Gen Con. And I was like, hey, Mike, do you have any events planned for Gen Con? I don't see anything for you on the event list. This is a real event list. It's not like the Pell, no shade to HMGS, but there's a real event list. It's searchable, it's organized, whatever. Nothing at all for Firelock, right? So I hit up Mike. I was like, hey, Mike, I don't think any of the other guys are going. I don't think Tales of Sales is going. I don't think Blood and Pigment guys are going. Do you need somebody to run events? Because I know you're going to be focused on the booth. Anybody who's not been to Gen Con, it is 1 part gaming convention and 1 part trade convention. It really is kind of like an E3 for gaming. So
it's
Mike,
massive.
A lot of time. Yeah, Mike doesn't have a lot of time necessarily to be there running events. He's got to work the booth. He's networking. He's meeting people he only sees when he's at Gen Con or maybe Adepticon. So he's there to really kind of like network in addition to running the booth, which is probably only second to Adepticon in terms of like what they're going to get as far as traffic. So I offered to run a couple events, and I reached out to Ruckus and said, hey, you want to run something for Blood and Valor? And so we did that. Blood and Valor event was the earlier one. Rufus showed up for that. We ran the event. It went super smooth. Great event. I think everybody had a great time. Blood and Plunder. Mike is supposed to show up at the event and help me out. Or Rufus. Somebody's supposed to show up. Unfortunately, of all the other events, they had put it in the Lucas Oil Stadium. So it was kind of out there. And come the morning of, this is 8 in the morning, events running at 10 o'clock. Text message from Mike. I send them the lists, the amount of figures we'll need, the ships we'll need. Are you good for this? Yes, I've got players bringing stuff. Everything's going well. 8:30, 8 in the morning. Hey, man, I can't show up to help you. I got to stay at the booth. Also, I'm not able to provide you with a couple of the boats. I'm going to send Ray, who is the son of Mike's partner, to come and help you set up at least. Ray got pulled like within 20, 40 minutes of being there. Ray had to go back to the booth. So really, Garrett helped me a lot with the setup and stuff. And despite all that, we still ended up starting maybe like an hour and 20 minutes later than I would have liked. However, the event itself, and that was just for me to throw shade at Mike. He'll listen to this. He'll hear it. I stand by that. But regardless, the event itself went really well. Everybody seemed to have fun.
Well, Niguel, I'm just going to quote New York City's mayor in rebuke to you in defense of Mike. Haters are just waiters at the table of your success. You succeeded despite the setbacks.
I was going to ask if that was the mayor I hate, but I don't.
That is Eric Adams, mayor of New York
City.
God King of New York City.
I was just going to say I don't think it matters which of the last like 4 New York mayors.
No, they're all clowns. They're all clowns.
I mean, Eric Adams was a member of the New York City Police Department. I've had two not direct interactions with him. If you are a fan of The Wire, the mayor in the first two seasons of The Wire is what my opinion of Eric Adams is, and we'll leave it at that.
That's
But
perfect. That's perfect.
yeah,
Perfect.
so
Yeah.
so regardless, the event itself, the pirate players, there were a lot of little rules. I've kind of like put together a little more organized, or kind of rule set for an event that I must give credit to Joe Forster and the Joe Forster, excuse me, and the guys from Blood and Pigment who ran that event at Adepticon. Jason Klotz, all of them did a really, really good job of running that event, and I to the point where I felt inspired by it and wanted to do it, but I wanted to add a little more RPG elements into it. A lot of that happened kind of like organically at our game, where they're like, there's one overall commander in charge of the card draws and they get a larger pool of fortune points so they can dole them out to the various players. And the pirates at one point decided to vote to see whether or not they were going to give one of their other players a fortune point, which I thought was brilliant. So I kind of baked that into the rule set a little bit. They can vote to countermand their overall commander's orders. They can vote him out, and there was advantages. The different people being in command. If you had like kind of like faction uh, abilities, you could only affect the pirates as a whole with that ability if you were the overall commander. So there was a little bit of a switch up in there, probably like around the second turn. So it flowed really well. The guy playing Jack Rackham was the hero of that game. He literally the first barrage of the game, and Garrett was running a sixth rate with 6 heavy guns. I think it had 4 mediums, 4 swivel guns, fully crewed. He blasted this ship to death. It went from its full hit points to 1 hull point, one hull value. It took 6 criticals in the first shot of the game from the opposing side. It was leaking, it was on fire, guys were dead. They miraculously over that turn brought that ship back to life. The beginning of the next turn, it takes again 6 criticals, and this time it takes a lucky critical as well, survives all that, and manages to grapple and it grappled Garrett's ship twice. And then one time they grappled, it didn't have the actions to actually board. He cut the grapples, they grappled them again, and they needed 7+ on the grapples because, of course, we made these ships with the new boarding anti-grappling upgrades. He boarded that ship twice, or grappled it twice, boarded it. They had thrown smoke in that front deck, and I mean, we just ran out of time. They probably went like 2 turns, and then it was kind of like time was up. People had other events, and they had to go. But everybody seemed to have fun. At least one player was there from Historicon, and it was somebody who I had played with in the tournament, and he seemed to have a good time. I made sure that everybody walked away from that game with a Summer of Plunder packet or the equivalent. I think we ran out. We only had 6 out of 8 for the players, and so the other guys got starter sets when they went to the booth later on. So everybody ended up with a net gain for signing up for that event, and they seemed to have a good time. I'll leave that to Garrett to decide, whether he had fun. There were 2 people who were in the galleon who didn't really get to do much except order Garrett's guys to do stuff. So I felt bad for them, but they also ended up with some good swag from the event. So they seemed to have a pretty good time.
Yeah, and he was one of the guys that was on my side, twiddling his mustache and laughing maniacally over on the Spanish side. He is from Jacksonville, I think, and I told him, if we ever do anything, because I plan on doing some more stuff, maybe down that way, I can get a hold of him and we can get together. But yeah, it was anytime you get to blast off 6 heavies into a little sloop is a good time. He got very lucky with the crits that I did give him, because if you remember back, my fall in experience was similar, but like all of my crits were leaks, and so my boat just sank. His got spread out a little bit, so he could like deal with it. but there were still a lot of them.
Yeah, it's also to mention that he took, all of those crits. So he took about 12 crits
Oh yeah,
that game, or it's the 12 and a half, maybe because he got that lucky hit. But it's also 24 potential casualties. And to his credit, he was doing pretty well with his saves. I think the worst, he never lost a unit on that ship. The worst was, I think, Rackham's command unit maybe got dropped to 2 guys, but the people he sent over were relatively cherry unit of guys who, like, I think they abandoned their guns and they had jumped over, and I was like, wow, this guy's really doing it. I actually felt that had we played out the game completely, they probably could have swarmed the 6 rate enough to cause it to be no longer able to project force once they got on it.
he definitely if he had had a couple of more turns, he definitely could have put a fight into that front deck, because my front deck was hurting. They were all of the pirate ships were firing into my front deck, so all those guys were either dead or cowering.
But it was good to see kind of like a coordination. Like, you kind of see like the pirates have more units activating per turn per activation than the defenders, but the defenders have probably more units available to them. So I think the average defenders had like about 6 units available to them, so they would activate more often than the pirates, but the pirates would be activating with 5 units per activation. So it kind of balanced out. I have to play with that list a little bit, and see what the balance is. I might actually give the defenders a 100-point deficit versus the attackers in that kind of scenario, only because things aren't quite even when somebody's in a 400-point ship, even if there are 5 200-point ships. So I have to see how it kind of works out and balance it accordingly. But I liked what I saw from it. People seem to have fun with it. It's the type of asymmetrical participation game that I actually like to play at conventions.
So, you guys had an awesome con, it sounds like. And that brings us to what we've been doing with our summer. If we are not somebody who's gotten to go to one of these cons, and there were a lot of people involved in the summer of plunder. So, Mr. Swader, if you would walk us through how the whole thing went from your end and what the results were.
So from my perspective, it went great. From other people's perspective, not so great. But it was a lot of fun. I sent out a lot of prizes. That's that's what I spent a lot of my time doing, was gathering prizes and making trips to the post office. Um, but yeah, Spain came out on top. It was never really in question throughout the campaign. Um, we kept our foot on the gas.
I honestly expected you guys to do the normal thing where you take an early lead and then fall off.
Well, listen, Glenn, you might have fueled us a little bit, because I remember you saying that in one of the chats, and I screenshotted your quote and put it in my Spanish chat, and I was like, "Look, guys, they don't believe in us. Let's show them."
Well, of course the Dutch don't believe in the Spanish. That's a
But yeah, it's I enjoyed the commander interactions this time. I also really enjoyed the national chats. Those were a lot of fun. If you're listening to this and you want to participate, just let your commander know. He'll get you into a chat and participate next year in the community. It's really fun. But yeah, changes are coming. They are being worked on as we speak. Because I don't think people liked, and I mean, I didn't really care for it either, the way that things turned out. Like, I liked that we won, but at the same time, it was a little boring towards the end. So, if we can spice it up a little bit by changing the rules around, I think that's a good thing. Next year, I think it's been said that we want to focus more on store level things as far as like getting events out there that are in real life and not just like online stuff. So like working with game stores, with quartermasters and stuff. No details really yet on that because everything is just kind of up in the air on what they're wanting to do. But yeah, rules are being changed. Not super drastically, but th- things are being worked on to try not to make a boring time of it next year if one nation just absolutely kills it. And Spanish championship T-shirts are coming.
I will point out that Tales of the Sale offered a prize to the person with the worst terrain. And this is kind of a secret objective, partially because I'm a flake and couldn't be as involved as I would have liked to be, and partially because I want to give away some terrain. So the winner in this particular case is getting his package mailed out basically tomorrow. I just need to pack 3 hills up with appropriate palm trees, and they should be on their way to you and arriving early in the week. So if this podcast is released appropriately, it should be released this coming Tuesday. So we'll still get it out in August, in which case you may already have your package as you are listening to this. But yeah, I wanted to give terrain to the person who decided to use a book as a hill, which we've all done at one point or another. But I felt like this guy had done a good enough job and put enough energy into it to deserve some real terrain for a change. Which brings us, I believe, to Adepticon. So let's talk about the rumors for Adepticon, because Niguel and I are both going to be there, but neither of us are committed to running anything. I'm excited to kind of be there as a player as opposed to an organizer. But I still might run some stuff for Mike and the Firelock guys because it's hard to resist doing that. So first of all, is everybody planning on going to Adepticon? And what do we think is going to be happening at Adepticon? Glenn, I'll let you start us off.
Well, to start off with the bummer, I'm not gonna make it. I'm gonna have a 3 or 4 month old.
Boo.
Boo.
Yeah,
Boo,
4 small
boo.
kids.
But Garrett and Niguel, you guys are both going to be there?
Oh yeah, I am definitely going to be there. That's I helped the Pigment guys last year run everything, and it was so much fun. I told them I'd be back next year.
I'm excited just to see Dexter because I plan on doing a ton of his videos and tutorials between now and then. I used his tutorials to make the docks that I'm going to use. I built one for Glenn, and I'm going to start building my own terrain and buildings out of it to make myself.
Is he confirmed coming back next year?
I think he is, but if he's
Okay.
not, I'll be bummed. But
I'll definitely be bummed because I need him back there so I can call it the Blood and Plunder World Championship. Because
you're darn right.
Well, if
I need
it's
somebody
not
from
Dexter,
another nation.
Martin,
Yeah,
get over here.
That or him, yeah, or we'll take both.
Well, we had Canadians fighting it out at Historicon. We had Matt Varnish and Scott Roche there. They drove down from Canada to be in Lancaster, Pennsylvania for the big event. So, but Dexter's from the wilds of Canada, isn't he? From like central Canada, I think he is.
Does anybody really know?
I don't know. I don't want to like dox poor Dexter Hyde, so I'll just leave it at that.
If I recall correctly, he does live in a more remote region.
Yeah, I think so. I remember him talking about being on planes for hours trying to get to Chicago.
So far, what we've got going for this is there will be more people to help at Adepticon. I was on a call before we recorded this with Mitch and Lee Gaddis and Mike Tunez, and plans are underway for the historical. So my suspicion is for anybody considering Adepticon this coming March, and we'll do a whole announcement of all the stuff that's coming up as we close out the podcast. But those considering Adepticon expect a much larger turnout for historicals, and it's a big con. I'm excited to go for the first time. I have relatives in Chicago, and I'm excited to have a room where I don't need to share a bed because Niguel and I get along quite well, but I don't want to sleep on a couch, and I don't want to share a bed with anybody. And Niguel generously has booked a room where we will not have to do that. So I'm looking forward to that, because I think when I turned 40, my desire to crash on the floor to save money kind of just disappeared in favor of being an old man.
Yeah.
There will be an Oak and Iron tournament planned. Josh Shivak is running that.
All of this that we're talking about is dependent on, signups and everything for events, as far as like submitting events to Adepticon.
Right. But we have the capacity and the intent. Yeah, the capacity and intent to do these things.
The tournaments we want to run a land, a sea, and an Oak and Iron, and then we want to run an event game for Oak and Iron, land, I think, event, although that might be the one that's on the chopping block first, amphibious and sea event. Those are like the goals that Joseph has put out, but yeah, I'm on the planning committee for that as well.
I'm excited to go just to play, because like it's far enough away for me that I don't want to bring all the terrain, because I'm not driving, I'm flying. Yeah, so I'll obviously be helping out, but it'll be interesting to let somebody else do it and just kind of go to game.
Yeah,
I'm looking forward to it.
I need to say something here. Tom, I'm going to say this on this podcast so everybody hears it. Stop it. You're not helping. You want to help a little bit demo game here, and that's fine. You're going to go there. You're going to play. We're going to have fun. I'm trying to get these Pigment guys to chill out with their schedule and set aside an invite-only game where all the guys who are like the big community guys, we get to play against each other, because it is as much as Adepticon is fantastically run by the Pigment guys, it is exhausting.
It is exhausting.
There should be some payback for them in that they get to play. I mean, I don't need to be a part.
They should get to play,
right?
For sure.
They should get to play against each other or against other community people, play against Dexter, against you, whatever. That should be kind of baked in. I'm not
if Dexter and Joe Forrester are there for me to play, I don't care if I have to stay up until 3 a.m. to sneak a game in between you. I would very much like to play. Even if we get to play in a scenario game, I'm down for that too. But I want them to have fun. You're dead right. The work that they put in, because they deserve to have some fun.
It was fun when we did the village raid scenario at Historicon last year.
Oh yeah.
So getting to set aside
Great Swamp Fight.
Great Swamp Fight.
Great Swamp Fight. Getting to play with Mike, Joe, the Tails guys, obviously us. Like that was great. So I fully support you guys trying to set aside time and do.
We are. It's on the schedule. We just want to make sure we get all of our, wants in there first, as far as event games and tournaments and everything. But it's definitely going to be easier. We are trying to make it easier this year, because last year it was exhausting. It was a lot of fun, but it was. And we had a hotel room with only one bed and a couch, and so Joseph slept on the floor. I was in the bed because the other two are way too nice, and Jason was on the couch.
You gluttons for punishment.
Yeah, I
can't do it anymore.
We needed the thing that we all said after Adepticon last year is that we were like, we got to get more people to help, and Josh Shivak was a great help, and I think we're pulling him in to expand his help this year. And I know we've contacted a bunch more quartermasters that are planning on attending and being like, you guys want to run something? Because we want to do other things.
The more people you have staffing it, many hands make light work. Is really what it comes down to. And so if you guys have additional reinforcements, it's going to be a big deal.
Yeah, and that was an issue last year, is because it was my first time at Adepticon. I kind of wanted to go to the vendor hall sometime, and it was like, man, I also want to stay here and help, but I was torn. This year or next year, I should say, should be a lot easier just to get away, because I think all of the Pigment guys are going to be there this year, including Dan and Guy. I think they are both planning on coming as well.
All right, so I have a question for you, Tom, because I've been to Adepticon. I know what I'm going to do. What do you want to do at Adepticon? If you say run demos, I will put a pillow over your face when you're sleeping. But what do you want to do?
I definitely want to play in a tournament where I'm not running it. So I'm psyched to do that. And I'm going to do some actual preparation, actual list building, and stuff like that in preparation for it. And I want to play in a big participation game because usually I get stuck watching them or helping to run them. And I'd like to just kind of be messing around and playing in one of those big participation games. If I can do those two things, I'm going to be happy. Other than that, I'm a big fat fatty, so I just want to find fun food in the area. And it's Chicago, so I love Chicago food.
It's not Chicago. It's Schaumburg. There is a difference.
Yeah, it's like Yonkers, you know.
No, it's
Isn't
not.
Yonkers the 6th borough of New York City? Really? You know.
I would describe it as it is the Lancaster. It is what Lancaster is to Philadelphia to Philly. I'll say that. Garrett, what about you? What do you got planned other than running crap?
Trying to get away and do some other things. I don't know yet, but my main thing is going to be running crap and playing games with people, just blood and plunder stuff. That's my Gen Con was my do other things con that I kind of wanted to do some blood and plunder stuff at. Adepticon's going to be like I'm just running blood and plunder and maybe smoke and iron stuff and just playing some fun games.
Adepticon might be a good chance for you to actually go participate into some BattleTech or Alpha Strike stuff too.
Oh, good call. Yeah, I have a bunch of my stuff painted. I mostly want to get. Yeah, I have a few mechs that I have that I need to paint, but I have most of the mechs that I want. I think so.
Oh, I just meant signing up for a game.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. But I want to bring my models, actually put them on the table. I haven't played with them since I was down there visiting you, and we got to play it for like a whole day.
Alpha Strike juggernaut. So because I'm going to be down in Florida for Hurricane, and Crucible is the following week, I might hang out for Crucible. All the bros are playing Alpha Strike. I think Rufus is actually running the events there. So I have some BattleTech stuff. I'm not to hate on Alpha Strike. I got into BattleTech from reading the novels. I got into it from the RPG game, and I was always a huge fan of playing the full tabletop game. So Alpha Strike for me is a little bit more abstracted than I prefer one player for one mech. You kind of have a more connection with it. But everybody's playing Alpha Strike. I would like to hang out with the bros and not just be a fifth wheel. So I had the figures. I threw something together. So if you want to play some Alpha Strike, I'm down, Tom.
Yeah, I like the BattleTech RPG aspect of it. When Glenn was telling me about the long game that they ran, where they were like driving around their mechs and stuff like that, that kind of gameplay really appeals to me.
Oh yeah, that was like a 5-year campaign though.
Oh yeah, no, it just getting to get together to do that kind of thing sounded awesome. I would totally get that. I like the lore; it fascinates me. As a world, it's just fun to play around in. I haven't read the novels, but I might start down that path sooner or later because it's the kind of thing I enjoy.
Well, I want you, Tom, to make some room to come home late to the hotel room, fall asleep, and I will tuck you in the way I did to Joe Forster at
so
Historicon 2022, I believe it was. He fell asleep while trying to update the Summer of Plunder, and I tucked him in. I folded his laptop, put a blankie on him, and made sure he was nice and snuggled in.
Well, as long as you don't stage the room like a scene happened from the movie Taken, like Mitch Reed did to me, then I'm sure we're going to get along fine as roommates.
We also need to go to the Hard Rock burger joint that I went to, where all the young ladies who got fired from Hot Topic now work, and
Nice.
they had good food, they had good burgers, drinks. Certain people from the who are standouts in the community did seem out of sorts, but the food was good, so it was fine.
It's the Hard Rock Cafe. I feel like it's par for the course.
It was like the Rob Zombie Hard Rock Cafe.
Nice.
Weird. I'm excited to see this then.
I mean, I feel like being in Florida is going to be set aside. Before we move on from Adepticon, I do want to ask because it didn't get mentioned, and I feel like we would be somewhat remiss in our business for not mentioning it, or at least me asking. Turning away from piracy a little bit, Do you know if Rufus or the other guys plan on running Blood and Valor or Blood and Steel stuff at Adepticon?
To my knowledge, they will be running some Blood and Valor stuff. They ran a tournament last year, but Rufus tends to handle that stuff himself. So I did play in that tournament. I actually won that tournament at Adepticon last year. And I think for the Blood and Plunder tournament, I pulled second. Me and Jason Klotz and I tied for second, and then I think I edged him out by maybe 1 point overall, so I ended up getting second place out of it. But that was the infamous Bermuda sloop versus the swivel-armed galleon matchup, which was a great game. Jason is very fun to play with, especially when he knows you. Like when he knows you and you can needle him a little bit, and he gives you that slightly sociopathic look. That is what I live for. Garrett Swader, don't be mistaken, is also a little bit of a sociopath, but he's a little more congenial. He's a little more of a friendly sociopath.
Well, it's a really nice thing for you to say. I'm sure Garrett appreciates it.
Also, shout out
no comment.
Shout out to Garrett's other half, who I got to meet at Gen Con, and she was great. I was actually disappointed that she did not play in the game. I think something else came up, and so she decided to bow out so somebody else could play, and she played that. But I got to meet her and talk with her a little bit, and she seemed great. So I look forward to seeing her if she's going to go to Adepticon or at Gen Con the following year.
And Garrett, if you are playing Agricola, you have a very experienced Agricola player who is very eager to play with you. So I would love to get in a board game or two.
Hey, if we have time, I can bring my copy to Adepticon. I would totally be down.
Board games.
But yeah, she's too good at board games and won a tournament and had to play in the finals on that Saturday, so she had to bow out of the Blood and Plunder thing. So that was why she didn't show up for that. Yeah, she got me into gaming. I tell people all the time. Like I before I met her, I was like, board games, what are those? And then I started dating her and playing board games, and I was like, oh, I like this.
Well, we're topping at an hour and a half at this point, so let's talk about what's coming up in terms of conventions, and then we will bid you adieu until the fall, when I will be teaching, and I'll have plenty of stories to tell about forcing kids to play war games. So I will open up by saying that, and this is probably knowledge that some of our listeners have, but if you are listening to this, they didn't do a great job of getting information out about this. One of the reasons that I'm going to Adepticon is because HMGS's March tournament, their big convention, is not happening. Cold Wars has been canceled. There were issues with the hotel.
For 2024.
Yeah, there you go.
It is not permanently canceled.
Just for 2024. They're hoping to get a new venue for the following year. But Historicon is as scheduled. Fallen is as scheduled. So instead of Cold Wars, the plan is for me to be at Adepticon, because it's difficult for me to justify both. I don't have the wife points to pull that off. Niguel, talk about that said. Go ahead.
That said, since I can't go to Adepticon, and for whatever reason, the guys at Barrage decided, they almost immediately sent out a notice to all of the Barrage attendees that they're going to be holding what they're calling Cold Barrage the weekend 22nd March 2024. So while you guys are at Adepticon, I'll be at a smaller gaming convention here.
Okay.
I'll probably go to that, have Blood and Plunder stuff. I'm not sure if I'm going to do a game or try to run a tourney. I think most serious war gamers will probably be heading to Adepticon. Don't know who will be left here to go to that convention, but we will find out.
Niguel, you've been to Huracan before?
I have not. It's my first time, but it is in Orlando, so it's a convenient location. My parents, they live actually, I think, not too far from where Glenn's either parents or in-laws live in. They live in Palm Coast, so they're maybe an hour and a half out of Orlando. So the plan is, I'm building a house in the suburbs of Tampa, so really kind of further north than Tampa, but in that area. So wife and I are going down maybe the weekend before to hang around the Tampa area, have like a long weekend vacation, see how the construction's going on the house. And then she's flying back early because she is not retired, and sucks for her. But I'm gonna hang out, and I'll hang out with the Devanes, and then we'll go. I'm supposed to be staying with Mike for Hurricane, and we'll do some Blood and Plunder stuff there. Looking forward to seeing some of the people from the local community down there who actually attended Adepticon, namely Jake and Holly. Also, Keegan is a friend of Rufus and Mike, who's in that area, who'll be attending as well. So a lot of local Florida people are be attending that. And so looking forward to that. I may hang out for the following week. I'll probably go to my parents and visit them for a little while, then come back to Orlando, maybe do Crucible, which will be like kind of like a BattleTech event. But Mike loves BattleTech. He'll be there. Rufus will be there. Kai will be there. So it'll be a good time. And that's what's coming up as far as conventions for that. If you are going to attend Adepticon, they have opened up reservations for the room block hotels. Get in there quick. I would imagine that the primary hotel and maybe the secondary hotel are already booked out, but you might luck out. And there's a lot of hotels that are within a short drive to the main venue, and there is pretty ample parking. So it's not terrible if you stay off site.
And those of you who are in the Southeast who are interested in Hurricane, it runs from 21st September to 24th September. So if you want to see Niguel having a blast down there, then go September 21st, 24th. BarageCon is happening about the same time. Glenn, that's close to you.
Yes. BarageCon is technically the 22nd, 23rd. That's a Friday, Saturday. I believe that myself, Tyler, Preston, and several others will be there. We're running a tournament for Blood and Plunder. I think it's limited spots, like I want to say 16 players, but it might even be 12. So if you would like to come to BarageCon, get your tournament registration in because time is of the essence on that one. But we will see you there.
After that, we have Fallen, which is running the first weekend of November, runs from the 3rd. And I don't know that I'm going to be able to make that one, but I might try. If I go, I don't know that I'm running events. I would be going
I will be there to run a tournament.
Okay. Yeah, sometimes the fall is dicey for me, but I have to see what my schedule looks like once school actually starts. This will be the first year that I don't have a million clubs and meetings to go to. So I might find that I actually have the ability and the capacity to go. So if I go down there, I will certainly be helping you at some point or another. And then Adepticon runs 20th through the 24th of March in 2024. Any other events or things coming up that you guys would want to mention, Garrett or Niguel?
People in the New York area, the Metropolitan Wargamers Club. What is the name of these guys? Give me a second. I'll pull up their name in a second. But they're a Brooklyn-based organization. David Frank is the guy who runs the big table at Historicon, is a member of it. They are having something over the Labor Day weekend. I think they might be doing something from Saturday through Monday over there. So I'm sure they're always welcoming to people who want to show up and participate. So if you can look them up on Facebook, I'll get the exact name of them for you guys before the end of the episode. But they're doing that. If you're in the New York area and Labor Day, what are we saying? Saturday, Tom, for some local gaming over there. You want to do some stuff?
I think I have a few. It's 4 people total at this point. I'm just going to cook some barbecue and we're going to play games from 10 until 5 as like a last hurrah before I have to go back in and teach every advanced course on Earth. So, yeah, I'm looking forward to doing that.
I'm gonna dissuade something on this podcast now. This is kind of cookie cutter, stay at normal stuff. We're gonna give you guys some insider stuff. Tom Mullane is not a bad player. I want everybody to know, as much as I've never lost to Tom, and Tom has come up with some weird stuff, he is not a bad player. He is an unprepared player. And I want to see Tom play with a full list because I believe that despite him being able to do a lesson plan for school, he cannot sit down and finish a list for Blood and Plunder. I have
It's
made
true.
his list. He is
Yeah,
just has
yeah,
to
he's
play the
you're
list,
true.
and we're going to see if he's a good player or not. Now, if he loses with this list, he does suck. That is what I'm going on record as saying.
All right,
He
all
does
right.
suck.
So we will take pictures. There will be an article, and we will talk about it. We'll talk about it next month. Find out how it all went down.
The truth will come out.
The truth will come out. So, on that note, I want to thank Garrett Swader and Niguel Vega for joining us this evening and recording on a Tuesday night, which is a work night for you clowns. But I'm still not working. I'm still on vacation, and I'm doing air quotes for people that can't see me on an auditory medium. Glenn, would you like to take us out?
Well, everyone, as always, thanks for coming. We can't do it without you listening. And we can't wait to bring you a few more episodes in short order. So, we'll see you all next time around.
Thanks so much for joining the show tonight. Remember to follow us on Twitter at No Dice, No Glory, and keep the conversation going on NoDiceNoGlory.com, now featuring our own message boards. Have a great night, everybody.